One of the most difficult to explain disappearances has had several private investigators wondering if the local police did enough during the investigation of a man named Daniel Robinson. Daniel Robinson, a young man of only 24 years, grew up in a large family of 4 children in Columbia, South Carolina. Throughout Daniel's entire life, he'd been an avid outdoorsman, often going camping, spending time in the wilderness, and using his free time to play music while going on hikes throughout the nearby countryside. Back in 2019, Daniel Robinson, eager to get a job that allowed him to continue to explore the outdoors, finished his time at the College of Charleston and graduated with a bachelor's in archaeology. Although he hoped to have pursued his career in academia and work at archaeological sites from around the world, due to his hand injury he was unable to find prolonged work in the field. Daniel's injury was caused by a strange birth defect, in which Daniel Robinson had been born with his right hand and forearm completely missing, resulting in a large stump slightly past his elbow. Without letting his disability get the better of him, Daniel continued to look for an outdoors job and landed work for an engineering firm known as the Matrix New World, which primarily handled performing inspections and management for the drilling and installation of new water well systems. By 2021, Daniel Robinson moved to Tucson, Arizona, and was on the second day of his job when he seemed to have suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth. The last known person to have seen or interacted with Daniel Robinson was fellow pump technician by the name of Ken Elliott, who claimed to have worked with him on the 23rd of June, sometime around 9 AM, but noticed something really strange about Robinson's behaviour. According to Ken Elliott, as they were working on the new well together, the workday was just beginning, and since Daniel Robinson was new, Elliott figured that he would make casual small talk with him as they continued their work. At first, Elliott talked about the heat and the weather of Tucson, and asked how Robinson was getting used to the changing climate compared to South Carolina. Robinson replied casually, but seemed to be genuinely disinterested in what Elliott was talking about, and appeared to have zoned out several times throughout the conversation, as if he was in deep thought. Elliott would give an interview to police about the encounter, describing Robinson as appearing to have been mentally distracted. He was just looking off into the desert. He had a very, very distant look in his eyes. Whenever he turned around, I would look at him and look into his eyes. According to Elliott, he assumed that Robinson could have taken some form of medication or recreational substance and was mentally impaired at the moment, saying the first thing I thought was maybe it was a substance or something, but his pupils were not dilated. From that standpoint, everything appeared to be normal. Then I thought this was a medical condition or something. I wasn't too sure. At this point, Elliott began to worry that there was something wrong with Robinson, that would require him to call in his co-workers to make sure that safety regulations were maintained. Before contacting anyone, however, Elliott continued to watch Robinson for more of a sign of a mental impairment before reporting anything unusual. I kept watching him, but he just turned around and looked off into the desert. After less than an hour of working together, Elliott explained that Robinson suddenly walked to his car without saying anything to anyone, sat in there for a while and then left the job site without a second thought, and while still staring off into the desert and acting strangely. Elliott would say the following: "Then he just turned around and walked back over to his Jeep, and I assumed he was going to get something out of his car, and then he just opened the door, got in, sat down, put on his seatbelt and then just looked at me, and then waved at me and backed off and took off." Assuming that Robinson left because he was feeling unwell, Elliott paid no further attention to the interaction and waited a few hours before calling his co-workers to tell them that Robinson had left early, believing that Robinson would have already called ahead of time to let them know he was taking a sick day. Oddly enough, when Elliott called in, no one else had heard from Robinson that day, and began to worry that something was wrong. A few hours later, the local police station, the Buckeye Police Department, were notified of Robinson's disappearance by the workplace. At the end of the workday, Elliot decided to follow Robinson's track while in his car, and discovered that they seemed to continue down to a dirt road that ended in a T-junction. Rather than taking a left at the junction, however, taking Robinson back into Phoenix, Arizona, the tracks appear to have gone off to the right of the junction, which would have taken Robinson's Jeep out further into Sonoran Desert. The following day, on the 24th of June, police were sent to Robinson's residence to check up on him, but received no answer. Despite believing that Robinson had possibly disappeared and was in trouble, the police didn't believe that they had a valid enough reason to enter the home, and decided to wait until the 7th of July before they would get a warrant, nearly 2 weeks after his reported disappearance. Once police entered the house, it became apparent that Robinson hadn't been inside for a while, and that he and his car were nowhere to be found for almost 2 weeks since his disappearance. Immediately after discovering this, the Buckeye Police Station ordered a search and brought together UTVs, cadaver dogs, searchers walking on foot, overhead drones and the Civil Air Patrol, with the help from Phoenix Firebird helicopters. By this point in time, Robinson's friends and family from South Carolina traveled to Tucson, Arizona, to help aid in the search, checking over an estimated 70 square miles from where Robinson's car tracks were last seen. Oddly enough, Buckeye police detectives claimed to have gotten a ping off Robinson's phone, but were unable to track the device for some unknown reason, but believed that it could have been caused by the phone having shut off after running out of power. After nearly a month of searching, on the 19th of July 2021, an overturned Jeep was discovered in a ditch within this 70 square mile searching area. Oddly enough, the car had been in a location that was claimed to have already been searched. The Buckeye Police Department provided a statement that they believed that the car could have been in the ditch from before the search, since the location of the car was below the horizon viewpoint, and could have been missed by drones and people searching by foot. Others, however, believed that the car must have been hit several times, and then placed in the ditch as it had not been seen on previous searches, and the person who found it claimed that the car must have been new, given the fact that it was very clean compared to other material left in the Sonoran Desert. The man who found it, a local rancher by the name of Brandon Shelton, provided the statement that he believed the car was new, because it was clean and because had it been in the area for over a month, his cows would have already found it and licked it, since cows are inquisitive creatures, and always lick everything they deem out of the ordinary. When detectives investigated the crashed car, they found that both of the airbags had been deployed, and the seatbelt had been worn, but no body was found inside or near the car. The only other sign of Daniel Robinson being anywhere near the car was when they found his work boots that were smashed underneath the car. Even more peculiar, the car was located less than 4 miles from the worksite. The police would also describe another strange fact, in that it appeared that all of the objects left inside the car would have been useful for Robinson if he had ended up in trouble. The report would detail the following items. The car contained Robinson's clothes, phone, wallet, keys and bottled water, a t-shirt, jeans turned inside out, shorts, orange work vest, boots and 2 socks. The car and the surrounding area was searched, but no blood or signs of Robinson was located anywhere in the area. On the 31st of July 2021, a human skull was discovered within a few miles of the location, but was later proved by investigators not to have belonged to Daniel Robinson. The official police investigation believes that Daniel Robinson had experienced something traumatic that led him to drive out into the Sonoran Desert, crash his car and then walk on foot, leaving behind his clothes and personal belongings for some unknown reason. When detectives got access to Robinson's cell phone and looked at his text history, they discovered that a week prior to his accident, he delivered some food via Instacart to a woman named Caitlin. The police then discovered that at the time of the food delivery, Caitlin and her friends were drunk and decided to invite Daniel Robinson inside to play video games. Several days later, Robinson would show up again and send a series of texts to the woman saying that he loved her. Caitlin then replied and told Robinson that she felt uncomfortable and didn't want him to show up at her house, and that they would not be hanging out anytime soon. Frustrated by this, Robinson returned to her home a few days later. He did this unannounced. Caitlin would then text Robinson to leave her alone. 33 hours later, Robinson would vanish. Police believe that Robinson was most likely suffering from issues given his new move and the end of the relationship with the random woman, and decided to go into the desert to end his life. Unhappy with the official investigation reports, Robinson's family would hire a private investigator to look into the events more closely and to uncover what really led to Robinson's disappearance. Almost immediately, private investigator Jess McGrath found evidence of foul play in Robinson's disappearance. According to McGrath, using GPS data of the phone and car, he'd uncovered that the Jeep had gotten into multiple accidents within the span of time of Daniel leaving the worksite and the car ending up at the bottom of the ravine. The vehicle's data also showed that the car crashed an estimated 4 hours after leaving the worksite, and the airbags then deployed, but the vehicle drove another 11 miles. After the next 11 miles, the car was involved in another accident, with evidence of a paint transfer caused by the collision of another car. What's strange is that the car's data shows that after the airbags had been deployed, the ignition to the car had been turned on an estimated 46 more times during the last 11 miles. To this day, Daniel Robinson's body is yet to be discovered, but Jeff McGrath believes that Robinson was the victim of an impossible to explain attack, and his car was left behind and moved to the bottom of the ravine to throw investigators off the trail. So what do you think about the mysterious disappearance of Daniel Robinson? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below, and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.